Hello, Well and Well listeners. It's good to see you all or be with you. John, it's great to be with you. This is another episode of He Said, She Said. In fact, it's episode 18 Fear and Courage, not fear versus courage, but this idea of why fear exists and how courage helps us grow. So, we'll talk about fear is one of the most powerful emotions humans experience. It exists to protect us, alert us in danger, and help us survive. But the same system that once helped our ancestors avoid predators, or when we felt fear, as in it allowed us to make change, to do something different, now it is also holding us back from growth, from opportunity, from meaningful change. And so, really understanding what does that look like. And before we get into everything else, I want to highlight courage isn't the absence of fear; it's the decision to move forward, especially when fear is present or even when fear is present. So, fear is reactionary. Courage is that pause to reason and put our best foot forward, even in the midst of fear. So, we'll get into it in more detail, some of the neurological side, some of the social, emotional. But before we do that, John, what do you have for us for playing chicken? What are you playing chicken with this week?
All right, let's play some chicken. And as a reminder, playing chicken is when we talk about that task that we are waiting for someone else to take care of for us. And this is just an acknowledge it. We're just gonna stare it down right in the face and say what we need to go get done and not wait for our spouse or a friend or whomever to take care for us. So in this week's edition, there's a theme here, which is it's Amazon or mail or anything that's sent to the house. But there's been lawn fertilizer that was sent in an Amazon package to the front door. This is cringy for a couple reasons. I am a big proponent of going down to Home Depot or a hardware store and slapping the bag before you buy lawn fertilizer or mulch or whatever it is, and doing the work to load it into your car and then drive it back. It's just like a rite of passage. Like that's how a yard project. It's kind of like the warm up for before you pull out the wheelbarrow. And because of my injury, we have now Amazoned lawn fertilizer, which feels in like bags of mulch, which feels not mulch, but some soil, which feels ridiculous. So it's been sitting in my front door. We've had 3 different house guests come over for dinner since it's been sitting there, and we haven't addressed it. House has been spotless otherwise, just the lawn fertilizer and 2 Amazon boxes sitting right there. And what to be clear, 1 is outside the box, so you know what's there. It's not like 2 large Amazon boxes. It's there. It's just fertilizer.
Love it. Well, maybe they think that you're like working on that project in the earlier in the day, or that you're going to get to it tomorrow. So no one said anything because they're like, oh yeah, he's just a gardener. He's taking care of his lawn.
I'm going with that,
Yeah.
the impression we
All
struck.
right. That resonates. And we'll give you a pass because one, why not? But two, you've had surgery. Like you're recovering. There's some components to that. So, all right, get that done, figure that out. For me, it's paying a toll bill. Y'all judge me left and right. John, judge me left and right. I'm like, where's my daddy? I don't know why, but so I bought my first car back in 2014 and loved her. She was wonderful. Long story short, got a new car this last September out here in Colorado. We have tolls. I forgot to switch it over. So we've gotten not just one, but two, but three notifications in the mail saying, hey, you need to handle this. And so Nick's just been like, Beck, please. And I'm like, okay, I will. So let me say this. I did handle it today, but guess what? It took a month and a half of 3 different mailers to come to me to handle it today, and the only reason why I handled it today is because I did all business today. So, paying a toll bill. There you go. It sat for 6 weeks.
No fault here. I see no fault. I've done this many times.
Why though? Why do we do this? I don't know. It holds so much more mental space than if I would just do it in the moment, but I didn't. I figured it out. I called someone. Okay, here's the other piece. I'm just gonna say it. Because of merging the old one and the new one, you'd think that they could just naturally happen online, but they didn't. Whether it's a user fault or the systems, we'll call it what it is. They did not merge, and so I had to call someone, which also was like, "You have an 8-minute hold. You have a 12-minute hold. How did it go up? I thought it was first come, first serve," and then it did drop back down. But she picks up, wonderful lady, very sweet, and she hooked me up, homie hookup, and so we're good to go, but I was like, "That feels archaic too to have to call someone." So, there's some other pieces, but at the end of the day, I need to handle my business. I'm an adult, and I didn't for a long time.
Relate. Who else can relate?
Yeah, exactly, and more importantly, happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yes. How are you doing? I think we've known each other officially for 30 years now, maybe not.
Oh, that is crazy.
Let's count it.
Yeah.
How or maybe this summer, come June, we'll have known each other that long, but yeah, high, low Buffalo, where you at?
Yeah, well, clearly wiser here on my 35th, birthday or day after. I had my high is a great birthday. Miriam was like 2 weeks ago, was like, "You're taking the day off, right?" I was like, "Well, I didn't plan to." She's like, "Yeah, you're taking the day off." And we both did, and we just ran around. It was like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but in this version, we go home 1:30 and watch a movie.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was still great. Um, we yeah, just an all around great day. And then friends surprised me, Miriam surprised me. I come I was like, "You're cooking a bit this is a big dinner for just us. Should I see if our friends wanna, like, come over?" And it was last minute. She's like, "Yeah, you can text them." And they walked in 3 minutes later, like, they had already planned to surprise me. Um,
So smooth, so smooth.
so that was great.
Look at her pulling tricks out of a hat. That's awesome, well done.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. And then my low work is tough right now. Culture's not a good place. It's hard, right? I'll just leave it at that. Um, so it is what that is. But my buffalo is I have there's a wind up here. I have my dad's college records from college, like his vinyls, his LPs, and I've had them for like 3 years. I've had a turntable for 2 years. I've had these awesome vintage speakers that I was given by my neighbor, God rest his soul. And so I've had this like setup, turntable, records, speakers, and I haven't had a receiver. So I can't play any of this. So I've been a total poser for the last 2 years. I got a vintage receiver for my birthday and I plugged it in and played my dad's college record for the first night. Started with the Temptations.
Love
And
this.
it is really cool. It's fully analog. The buttons on it feel like I'm flipping switches in an airplane cockpit from like the 80s.
So cool.
It's really cool. So that's my Buffalo. It was a great birthday gift.
Dang.
It's been a birthday gift multiple years in the making.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You just were stacking hands on it. I love that though. How fun to have, again, something nostalgic that hits to the core and then, yeah, as a gift to be seen in that. So, so fun. And Temptations, shout out to old school too. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, some Motown. How about you?
Yeah, high would be went to DC and then came back, was in the whirlwind of getting back organized and things like that. And then we had Marcus's birthday party on Friday night, and it was so fun. It's the first time he got to choose friends. Normally it's us adults and then like their kids and stuff. And he was like, I want to go to Lava Island, which is think inflatables and obstacles and just fun things to play. Jump trampolines. There we go. I was gonna say jumpolines, trampolines. Just very fun and space themed, like, just had the time of his life. It was so fun to get to witness him with his friends because we don't really get to see that yet. So this is a new endeavor where I'm like, "Oh, this is the kind of kid that you are. This is how you play, or this is what friendship looks like to you at this age." And that was so sweet. I'll lead right into my low. Lulu must have licked the walls and the floor and everything else because guess what's coming back through our house? It is boogers galore. So, you know what? I was pumped for 2 weeks because we were finally healthy. Well, we are spending spring break sick. So is
You guys are on a heater. This is like 12 weeks in a row.
I know, and it's yeah, it is what it is. So as you're flipping switches on and off, yeah, for your records, that's where we're at for sickness. But you know what? It's hot here now. We've had some snow and stuff, but it's hot. So we'll be outside playing, and it's totally different than the winter where we're inside a ton. So that'll come. She'll get healthy quicker. Knock on wood, but I believe in that. And then Buffalo would be we went to my cousin's son's band concert up in Westminster last night, my mom and I. Oh my goodness, it was middle school, so I'm just gonna call it what it is. My mom and I, like, we show up. We show up, we show up, and We knew, like, full on, we're like, "That's Star Wars. Oh, that's Little Mermaid. Oh, this is so cool." And they sounded like some high school bands. Like, it was awesome. And so they each played 2 songs, like the different orchestras or the different bands rather. There were different age groups, and it just was really, really well orchestrated and designed. And so I was like, not only did I show up to love on my cousin, but I, like, felt it and I loved it, and he was jamming the whole time, so we can get into as you talked about music, that's what reminded me of it. He was, like, bobbing and in between and just feeling it, and I didn't do band. I wish I would play an instrument. We were required in my house to play piano for a while, but then I chose not to. I chose sports, and I'm like, "Dang, I wish I would've stuck with something. Why not?"
Same. I mean, I don't wanna go too far down this path, but I will tell you this maybe I'm an enabled millennial, but my my mom had a conversation with my middle school counselor. She was like, "This boy does not need to be in band. He needs to be in PE 5 days a week." It's like one of 2 kids that had PE 5 days a week. Never picked up the clarinet, never, tickled the ivories. I may have a musical inclination, and I'm not saying that was a wrong decision. I'm not
I was gonna say that played for you. That played well for you, actually.
yeah, look, I didn't need to be, um, playing the French horn. I needed to be, like, running laps. So, it was the right thing, but I empathize with the feeling of what could have been, Becca. What could have been.
And so now we as parents are debating, again, talk about fear and courage. We're like, okay, do we require that our kids play till a certain age, that they have to pick up an instrument? What do we say? But because we feel very strongly that they also have to play a sport just because of how much good comes out of learning and discipline and socialization and leadership and all the skills that come along with the physical side of it and wellness. But yeah, so we're debating that too. So nonetheless, to be determined, but shout out to middle school band teachers and students who are playing it. Awesome. Put more music into the world, please. Would love, 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 love that.
Yeah, amen. Alright, let's talk courage, fear and courage. Lead us in here.
Yeah. So I want to share, like, coming in some of the things that we work with, and it's because I've worked on my own, like on myself. So as I share this stuff, it hits to the core and also have done quite a bit of work in it because there are a lot of things as a people pleaser and as a person who is highly competitive and also maturing out of that of more collaborative and things like that. Like fear of failure, fear of acceptance, fear of all these different things we have innately. And it's not like I'm afraid of a bear anymore or that, I'm in a landlocked state. So it's not like I'm afraid of a hurricane even or something like that, which I understand is very real for some other people. But often we say, "Oh, if I fear that, it means I need to stop or I need to disengage or I need to just totally pull myself out of the situation." And actually, I want us to focus more on the side of it may be an indicator that something is uncomfortable, something is new, that actually I have a deep connection to this. So I feel a weight to say, "Hey, I want this to be successful." And really, what does it look like to step out of our comfort zone in our adulthood stages? Our kids, they'll fail 1,000 times and then get back up and learn how to walk or, writing their name. How many times have I looked at that and I'm like, pretty close to an L, right? Or, oh, I could see the start of an M, sure, right? But we don't say like, "Oh, stop writing." We say, "No, keep going, keep practicing." But here in adulthood, we're like, "Dang, I'm fearful of this. I'm just out. I don't want to be just I don't want to be in an uncomfortable situation or I'm not sure I have the energy to learn something new or I don't even know how to begin or what to do." So, one of the skills that we need to really focus on is learning to distinguish danger from discomfort. And the more we can do that, we can talk about practical ways to do that, but the more we can do that is so powerful. So, any thoughts there as far as where you've seen fear in your life or what your thoughts are on it being something that doesn't necessarily mean we have to pull away or have to take a stop?
Yeah, I think this is a really good distinction between I think of the distinction between intuition, it intuition and then that exists for a reason, which is to protect us, and when we need to be courageous. Intuition exists for a reason. It's helped us as we were living in caves for the bear at the door or whatever it may be, and it still serves us. And there's an incredible book called The Power of Fear that I haven't even read. Miriam's read, but and it teaches why we should trust intuition. or fear. There's a big distinction here though. And what I mean to get at what I'm getting at is like if you're feeling comfortable getting in the elevator with that person, don't get in the elevator. That story has played out too many times, right? This is where I think of this in the context of life changes, fear of maybe a higher up hierarchy of needs, right? So not like my physical safety is at harm, but my ego, my people pleasing tendencies, my acceptance tendencies, my intelligence. Those are the things to I think of to put that's where we should put our courage in this day and age. And look, there are times where there are really tough scenarios, horrible scenarios where courageous people step in. But I think on a more frequent basis, the courage is on these other things that have to do with not our physical safety, but these other security, comfort, these other things up the hierarchy. And that's where I think courage is really, really important. So I think it helps to make that distinction, right? Intuition, we should trust, and intuition keeps us safe. The point of physically, right? Courage is important for us to overcome the things that is comfort or basically turn into the wind, right? That's for something better. And as I think about career wise, personal life, there are so many moments that I look back and when I was like fearful and I was courageous. I mean, look, even proposing, um,
Yeah.
like it's there's so many highs in my life that have been experienced because of courage and of taking the fear. And then I don't consider myself more courageous than the next person. I think that why I like that we're talking about this is if we start to give ourselves a little bit more of like a awareness of when fear is creeping in, we could be more courageous more frequently
Mhm.
and unlock more of these great things that we're talking about. So that's my intro diatribe. I'm sure there'll be another, but I'll pause there.
No, beautiful. I mean, 2 of the things that you hit on that I was thinking about is, 1, the other side of fear is often freedom, and so we're so scared to take that chance or to step into something new or to ask the person to marry us or to say, "Yes, I'm gonna commit to this," or again, it's this idea of how do I not avoid fear? How do I move through it, trusting and hoping that what's on the other side is so much better, that it's excellent even, or phenomenal, and saying, okay, each time we do something that we once feared, our world gets a little bit bigger. We wear our stripes a little bit brighter. We say, oh, I've done that. Therefore, I can do it again. Or I remember getting through this hardest thing, even fearing the loss of someone or fearing a broken relationship or a change in a job or whatever it might be. And it's like even fearing going off to school, right? Or moving out of the house or a job or a home, buying a new home, whatever it may be in our stories. Anytime there's that change, it's like, is this is this worth it? And that's a very important thing again to reflect and say, is this worth it? And when we can say, oh, I'm really scared about doing it, but I think it is for X, Y, and Z. I've taken that step to logic to think, use my prefrontal cortex, and we'll get into that, is saying, yeah, it actually is worth it. So now we've moved through the fear. It doesn't mean we avoid it. It doesn't mean we just sit in it, but we move through it to say, okay, my actions are still going to go one step after another. And that's beautiful because then we can look back just like you did and say, man, remember when I was so nervous or sweaty palms or any of these indicators to propose to Miriam, even though she's an incredible human, total babe, all these things, but it's like, I'm so nervous. That's the rest of my life. That's a commitment, right? And a beautiful one, but also a commitment. And so what does that look like to hold multiple emotions at once too? And I think often we forget that when it comes to fear is we think, "Oh my gosh, this is the only thing that's existing right now." And instead it's like, "Oh, I fear. I have fear in my life about this. Can I name it? Can I start asking questions? Can I start sharing an idea of maybe why it happens? Can I try something unfamiliar to help me learn it? Or can I even set a boundary?" Sometimes setting a boundary is part of fear where it's like, "Oh, I fear hosting 30 people at my house." Wait, I don't actually fear hosting 30 people at my house. It's certain people who come that bring drama into the space that actually that doesn't feel like that serves me. What does that look like for my husband and I to have a conversation there? Or something along those lines. Or maybe it's, oh, I'm so nervous to send my child to this school. And it's like, "Oh, wait, no, I fear the bus because of my experiences on the bus where we learned how to scrap or we learned, the dark sides of the world on the back of that bus." And so, some of those things is starting to say like, "Okay, this is the boundary, whether it's in my mind or physically or with family or other relationships." And so really I want to just reemphasize before we go into another part is fear often signals growth. So again, discomfort versus danger, like you talked about with safety versus hierarchy needs, intuition, and then coming into courage happens in small steps. How do we build it out over time? And then the third one is how do we trust and also from experience know that the other side of fear is often freedom. So moving through that fear into some freedoms. Anything coming up for you or what are you thinking there?
Yeah, I have a clarification and one other piece to clarify because I'm sure Miriam's listening. I was not afraid to propose to her in the sense I was afraid she was going to say no. Okay, so
There we go. Okay, so it's perfect. Yes. And that's where you ask the question is like, imagine though if you were just like, "I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid." And it's like, I'm not actually afraid to propose because 'cause I'm pumped to marry this woman. I'm afraid of rejection.
yeah, it's a rejection, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That word that we don't wanna talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. The other piece is just coming back to the one of the concepts we talked about in communication, which is exploring the iceberg.
Mhm.
Acknowledging what you are sad about, happy about, afraid of, part of being afraid of is like naming it is 25% of it, my experience. It's not gonna like solve it most of the time, but naming what you're actually afraid of, because it's really just the scenario. The scenario is presenting a soft spot for you that you're afraid of. So I'm nervous or I'm afraid of this job interview. Well, you're not afraid of like the interviewer. It's not like it's actually Shark Tank. You're afraid of rejection in the sense, or you're afraid that it's insert thing, insert like one of 3 to 5 things that is really what it boils down to. And I think that is at least a helpful in processing fear for courage.
For sure.
There have been times where I could talk myself out of fear because of that, right? It's like, "Oh, this is what I'm afraid of." Yeah, but I've done, like, these 5 other things that I call to mind where I'm good in this scenario, and it's just like I move through it. Not every time, so explore the iceberg is what I'm getting at, is to help address fear.
I love that. Oh, no, I was just gonna say real quick because that is brilliant to say it might even be communication with myself, right? It's that awareness that you're getting at. And so saying, I was pulling up something as you were sharing that of the iceberg. Oh, I might even show up as I'm angry. Angry is a secondary emotion, actually, and the primary would be fear. And if we dig down deeper, it could be rejection or other reasons why even further. But fear is a primary emotion that leads to fight or flight. It is a core response or a mechanism that we've had in our hindbrains forever to say, Am I in danger or not?" However, in 2025, 2026, now it's like, okay, what does that look like? So having the awareness even to say, oh, what am I afraid of? That question alone, I don't know how often many of us do that or even have the recognition to know when I'm angry or when I'm sad or when I'm mad, it's actually because I'm fearing something or maybe because I'm fearing something. And then therefore, let me ask the question, peel back another onion as you've talked about, or another layer and saying, what is that deeper reason for that? So go back into whatever you're saying, but I think that we need to get into, yeah, that.
That's it. That's it, is the another benefit of exploring the iceberg as we talked about. So that was what, episode 16, 17? Yeah,
The last year. Yeah, 17.
17. So I'm b curious, and I'd love for you to just, like, walk me through, like, what happens in the brain with fear? What is it there for? Because I definitely feel the physical effects of fear, and I wanna understand this a little bit better from an expert, not an armchair expert such as myself.
Hey, we both serve a purpose in the world. No, I mean, we've talked about why or how we see it happen, but ultimately the brain was designed and in the amygdala. So going back old, not thinking prefrontal, we'll get into that because that's related to courage, but the amygdala, which scans our environment for potential threats. Again, socially, we are designed to mate. We are designed to be a part of community. So socially, it's going to happen. Physically, am I safe to step into this place? Am I not? And when the brain senses danger, whether real or perceived, we talked about this, I don't know, one of the first 5 episodes, whether our brain understands if it's real or perceived. So, for example, is a bear actually coming at me? Or am I so afraid to speak in front of other people that it feels as if my body's going to shut down as a bear's coming after me? Both things can be true. It activates fight, flight, or freeze response. And so that just is autonomic. That means it's automatically going to happen. And we have to pause ourselves. The more we practice courage, the more we bring in this awareness that you're talking about, the more we say, tip of the iceberg. Oh my gosh, I got sweaty palms. Oh, I'm sweating. My heartbeat's going like this. My brain means that it's either about to fight, right? Some of us are like, oh, let me clench, let me go at it, right? And it's like, wait, it's just me about to go on stage. But we see people who are like, bring ourselves up because we're like, oh, I need to handle this. Or maybe it's before I proposed, like, what if she rejects me? What if she rejects me? What if she? So for some of us, it's going to be calm. For others of us, it's going to be like, let's go. For others of us, it's, I'm taking off. Actually, I bail. I'm out. And so I've had to work really hard and it's innate. So this is what I'm going to say. When Nick and I come into conflict, I have learned that I'm a flight. I'm out. I don't really freeze. Sometimes I'll cry. We'll just call it what it is. But no, I don't really freeze. And I've learned to not fight. Something within me is like, I'm out. I don't want to fight about this. I don't want to do it. But then I almost ghost him or I avoid him. Not necessarily gaslight, but I'm like, oh, we'll go back to this. And he's like, well, no, stay in it. Stay in it. And so where did I learn that from? I don't know. Or why is that within me? But nonetheless, I'm more of an in flight. So I don't know if you know, where would you, like when you automatically are in an uncomfortable situation or a perceived fear or actual fear, right? All through these separate purpose, do you tend towards one? We do them all, but do you tend?
Yeah, so I definitely identify with fear leading to anger and fight more. Consider like I haven't been in a bunch of bar fights in my life, so I don't think this has gone to a point where I've like actually harmed myself or others physically. But yeah, if I'm fearful of something, I'd say that I'm easily set off more easily than I am normally. So um there's one of my ugly parts.
Hey, it's real, right? Like, I appreciate you sharing because we all have them. And that's something that I would say the more we can dismantle it and say, take with the shame out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Fear operates in isolation and shame, whether in the brain or physically, where we remove ourselves from situations, or in our brain, we're like, I'm less than, or oh my gosh, kick yourself in the butt. Like, why can't you handle this? You got this, things like that. And in reality, having difficult conversations with our bosses or with our partners or with our families, even with ourselves, and saying, like, no, wait, stay in it, move through it. Is this perceived or is this real danger? Or actually, is it discomfort? And how do I move through it? By taking that first step and saying, okay, I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to move through the anger. I'm going to address it and say, I'm actually really scared of rejection, or I'm scared of getting yelled at. I'm scared of letting someone down. That's a huge one as a people pleaser. I don't love having conversations, hard conversations, because I'm going to let someone down and I don't like that feeling. However, I'm learning and I've learned a lot, but I'm still learning. Have the conversation because that's actually kinder to them because they get to then control what their response is. I can't control that response from them. And so that's my own journey there too. In that is saying, okay, have the conversation. And on the flip side, because I do have some fight in me, it doesn't mean I have to be aggressive. It doesn't mean I have to scream. Right now in the world, we see a lot of fear. And how's it coming out? Screaming, aggression, name calling, physical altercations, all those things. And actuality, if we were to come to a place and say, I'm so fearful that our immigrants aren't taken care of, or I'm so fearful that by me voting for Trump, I'm less than in someone else's eyes when actually I care deeply about the world. Whatever it is, those are two different sides that we see right now. And actually, they're really the same people often. And nonetheless, it's one of those things I bring up those two options because people right now are just going at each other. And what they really fear is something of discomfort or perceived fear of saying, I want better for the world. I want better for. And that's a beautiful thing to want. So, how do we move into courageous conversations of saying, hey, this is what I feel. This is what I see. and I respect you enough to have these conversations. That's how that happens. And then going into, I do want to talk about courage real quick. So I talked about hindbrain. Now we're going to talk about prefrontal cortex. That's the part responsible for reasoning and decision making, allowing us to pause. This is the number one thing with fear is, can I take a breath? My heart beats going 1,000 miles an hour. Can I take a breath and say, I'm in this space. I was designed for this, paired for this. Let me crush it. Or, dear Lord, let my heartbeat slow down because I need it to. I need to get through this, so please let it slow down, right? Like, and so
Or pressure is a privilege.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah. Whatever mantras, right? Like getting us through that space.
it changes by the scenario.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then ultimately we pause and we choose our response rather than reacting automatically. So when we engage the prefrontal cortex, I've talked about this in the past, but there's a wizard brain and the lizard brain. Lizard brain is because lizards have existed for so long. And so that's our amygdala. That's our hindbrain. That's all these things. So that controls reactions. And so what happens is I'm going through life, prefrontal cortex is engaged. All of a sudden, fear comes. Fear flips the prefrontal cortex on its head and says, run, freeze, fight. And then what happens though is the more I practice courage, this actually cases back down and it says, that's still going off crazy underneath. It's still going nuts underneath. But this is saying, hey, breathe. Hey, you're okay. You've prepared. She loves you. She's told you she loves you. Take that step. And we start to be able to process through life. And so that's just one practical way for those of you listening and not watching. My hand flips up and my thumb becomes prefrontal, or excuse me, my thumb is the amygdala and the hindbrain, the lizard brain, and top of my fingers fold over it and really protect that hindbrain with the prefrontal cortex. So it's a beautiful illustration to show what happens. And one other piece to that I'll say, shout out to Deion Sanders, Prime, Coach Prime. He's at the Buffaloes right now at CU. And so one of the quotes that he says is, why would I be shocked when I've prepared? When I succeed because I've prepared, I'm not going to be shocked. I'm going to be grateful. You're going to see me excited. You're going to see me animated. But shock isn't one because I'm not afraid to because I've done the preparation. And so I think preparation even is one example of how courage practically keeps fear at bay or allows us to move through fear.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, lots of things here, but
yeah.
no one's alone. If I can say anything, none of us are alone in fear. It's how we were
So
designed.
that's what I wanted to get at next is that there are many, many scenarios where we have to deal with fear on our own and we have to like do exactly what you just said, which is pause and let our friend brain take over from the lizard brain.
Yeah.
There are also like slow burn scenarios where fear it strikes fear. And this is where a mentor can
Mm,
be really in community can be really helpful. And whether you're an external processor and all you need to do is talk it out, and that's how you get your idea, or someone that you really can confide in and trust. It goes back to it's all these things that we talk about are interrelated about effective communication, about community, because if you can communicate effectively and you're willing to be vulnerable to seek community, it all comes back around and that you can lean on these people to help you
yeah.
deal with fear, right? That's the other piece of this is like many scenarios we're just gonna have to deal with on our own, and it's about developing the tool set to do it. There are others where we have the luxury of a tough decision to make, a fork in the road, a scenario that could play out over time, and having someone to talk with can be really helpful. So that's but
Yeah.
pause. And I think, I come back to, if I dare, a recommended 60 seconds to sit, Rebecca,
Come on.
is exploring the iceberg. And I think this is really helpful for a couple of reasons. One, it names the fear. Like what are you actually fearful of? And it also is an act of gratitude too when you're feeling fear. So if fear is like the most pressing emotion, number one, you can address it by saying, what am I anxious? What am I the 4 questions are, what am I mad about? What am I sad about? What am I anxious about? And what am I glad about? So fear is in there between anxious, sad, and mad. So by doing this, you're going to identify what you're fearful of. And then what are you glad about is gonna it's gonna force your mouth open and put the cough drops of gratitude in a moment when you need it. So that is what I would recommend this week for 60 seconds to centered is take the time to be present and ask yourself, what are you mad about? What are you sad about? What are you anxious about? And what are you glad about? And then the last step is comment to us how you feel after doing this exercise when you're feeling fear prior.
Yeah, come on now. I love that because through that 60 seconds to centered, we're reminded of the contagion of courage, right? You talked about fear, or we've talked about fear. We can think about that, how people see fear and they're like, oh yeah, I need to be fearful too, or I need to, but same with courage, right? As you talk about taking that medicine of even if it feels forced sometimes it does, but it still does its job. That's courage. Sometimes taking that first step is fear in itself, but we do it, and then it turns into be the healthiest thing for us and the medicine that we actually needed, even though we did not want that. And so, just a reminder of courage is contagious, and doing that in community, and like you said it initially or a few moments back. And then I love this. So reflect, go through the iceberg with those different emotions, and then coming into a place of gratitude or gladness to say, okay, what do I have? How do I operate in the world? And then allowing ourselves to move through that.
This was another conversation where at first glance, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what my take is on courage and fear. So as always, thank you for the thought-provoking topic and helping me uncover more about myself as I hope our listeners here uncover more about their selves.
I'm glad you don't think that's being voluntold. Maybe it's being voluntold, but I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
But it's been another good episode of He Said, She Said on Well and Well Together podcast. And we will see you next time.
Be well, y'all.